Hi, this is Amanda.
And this is Jen.
And you're listening to Just This, a podcast that explores everything around being and becoming a mother or parent.
We're excited to have you join us as we dive into the practical details as well as the unseen energetics on topics that span from preconception to years after birth.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Good to have you here today for a really fun conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had Jen's like, I just need to grab my coffee.
Yes, I did.
I thought the same thing. I need my matcha.
Yeah.
We're going to
switch to matcha.
because our topic today, to put it bluntly, is anal.
Anal.
We'll dive
Which
in.
I thought was really funny.
I love that we're just like, let me just grab my coffee while we talk about anal here for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably all like, why are we talking about anal? And that's a great question. I am in a group where this is kind of the theme of the month. Don't ask what kind of group it is. But when we were doing some talks, there's different things we were going into. And I've actually had these really big hits of inspiration of all the things around some of this practice, especially when you get into the tantric background with this practice, how beneficial it is for birth. So I guess the topic really is beyond anal. It's how anal can actually be helpful in preparing for birth and labor.
Mm-hmm. I thought it's funny because you text me this really long message and you're like, how do I feel about this? I'm curious, did you actually think I would say no to you?
No, but how did you feel about it? It was a little bit out of left field.
It was. I mean, it makes sense because as a midwife, that's one thing that we help during birth. Just pretend like you're taking a poo, like push like you're taking a poo. So it totally made sense to me. And then also, I was just reminded of when I asked you when I was inquiring in the dating world, you have to know what you want in those terms. And I was inquiring about anal. And the one thing you said to me was, the one sentence I remember was like, it's good for when you're stuck.
Yeah, only. I mean, we can get to that in a minute, but
So those are the two things that came up for me.
that was a piece of advice that was given to me and has been solid gold like forever. So I think let's start with this. The most obvious is that was kind of what came to me too, is I remembered that my midwives told me the same thing when I was pregnant. 'Cause somebody was like, well, how do you prepare for the pushing of labor? And they're like, look, passing bowel movements is a great way to tune into that because it's all about relaxation and opening. And while there is pushing, it's when you're pushing too hard when you're pooping, you can have the same effect when you're in labor, is what they were telling us. And so there was a couple of practices that we were given. One was the Kegel one where you're peeing and you stop peeing, try to stop midstream to help practice that muscle. There was also the when you're having a bowel movement, take deep breaths, allow your body to do what it does and not try to force it too much and try to be with it and just relax into the sensation and allow it to come. And yes, there is some efforting, but the more kind of that balance of like, this shouldn't feel like a huge effort, although labor does feel a little bit like a huge effort. So that was the first thing. And I think that's the most obvious when people think about, well, how does anything anal relate to labor? Yes, you will be told this. I think most midwives would say this, maybe not, but that is a really good way to relate to it. And then on that note, when you're in labor, if you've talked to anybody who's vaginally given birth, you will often hear, it felt like I was taking a big shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So true. I remember somebody telling me that and I was like, okay, but then when you're in it, whoa, it doesn't even feel like it's anywhere near your vagina. It feels like taking a big shit, which is weird. You can maybe speak to that more, but
yeah, it's because baby's head is getting pushed through and everything is so close. The vagina and the anus is really close. So as the head comes down and the baby comes down, there's just a lot of pressure right there. And I think you brought up a really good point about pooping in that practice is that we tend to want to get the poop out really fast or push it out, force it out. And so I love the idea that you said, which is wanting to relax and allow it to fall out as opposed to really force it out like you're constipated or something.
Bringing this back though, you're like, great, that's pooping, but that's not anal sex. So there's many things with anal sex. First of all, people often say it's painful, it doesn't feel good, and usually that's probably because you're forcing it. You're going a little too fast and you're not breathing, relaxing, slowly allowing the anal penetration. And while that is an opposite direction of what you're practicing for labor, I think it's unnatural, which labor is going to feel unnatural, the amount of pressure that you have coming through your vagina, but really it feels like it feels like taking poop, but like the amount of pressure in your body, all of this. I think the practice of anal sex, if you're doing it properly, is one of releasing, one of practicing breath work in a certain way, one of really getting in tune with your body and really slowing down. So all of these things are valuable tools you can bring with you to your birth, and anal penetration is a great way to start practicing these tools. So there's the wrap in there with that. Anything?
Yeah. I just want to say too, swinging back to the childbirth thing for a moment, is that it is why it's a thing after birth to be afraid to take a poop, because it literally feels like you just, like you said, pushed a baby out of there. And yeah, I agree with you. I never did any anal prior to childbirth, so I can't speak about that personally. Did you ever?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you surprised?
No.
So it's interesting too, because this came up in some of the discussions I've been having with these groups. I had practiced anal in my younger years and then came into Tantra, and that definitely changed my relationship to and experience of anal, right? It brought in a lot more of the energetics, a lot more, I think, just intentionality into it, and then also just more of the benefits. I was able to actually get some of the benefits that really come from the practice versus it just being something different to try or something you see that you're just going to do.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's another element too I want to bring into the two things I hear from people are mostly it hurts. I don't want to do that. And ew, that's icky. There's going to be poop everywhere. That's the other thing. Like they're worried about poop. And that's another thing that's really great for preparing for labor.
Actually, very
if
true.
you're like really freaked out about your own poop, you're going to have to get over that. You're going to have to get over it. And I get it. You can have support teams that help keep that clean, but there's nothing clean about labor. And people are surprised to know that that often involves poop. Either your body evacuates the poop right before and you have diarrhea or things like that is all natural. Your body is flushing things out naturally, which that was the case for me. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I did castor oil, so yep.
That's the area, right? Like my body just like triggered. It was my sister that asked the nurse, "Is this normal?" They're like, "Yeah, that's totally normal." I was like, blood and poop everywhere. Or people will poop during labor. It happens frequently.
And usually the poop, just to confirm, it's like very small little bits where you're just, as a midwife, like just taking a little bit and wiping it off. So
yeah. And that's usually how it is during anal too. But people get really grossed out and weirded out by it. Like, first of all, I can attest that if you do certain things, and if you want to go down a whole anal conversation, just reach out to me, or I can point you to some resources for that. This conversation is more how it relates to being open and how it can relate to actually easing and helping with labor. But if you take a shower and you do things you prep before, most of the time I'll say in my anal experiences, there's very little poop involved. And when there is, it's like you said, very small. Very small.
Yeah. I have to say that was the first time I did anal, was like, that was like the biggest thing, the mind. You talk about like how it can help you prepare for birth. And that was like a big mind thing that I had to really get over. I was so afraid that poop isn't come out. And the guy's like, it's fine. It's okay. It might happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a great, in that way, like you said, it's a great mental training, because maybe it's not poop that you're worried about in labor, but it could manifest as something else. And so the poop is just like a theme that can be used to learn to get over it and work through that process. So I love that.
mental blocks for sure. And it can lead into that if you're stuck, there's a lot of energetics behind anal. And if you think about acupressure, acupuncture, there's probably a lot of points that are getting hit
Mm.
in that practice that just don't get hit and worked energetically. So that I believe. And I do think there is a really big element to opening your mind when you do something like this. You have to, because everything in our society speaks against it. Everything's like, don't touch that area. That's dirty. Things only come out of there. And when you can go there anyway, you're
Mhm.
creating new neural pathways, or you're breaking free, or you're allowing your mind to open and expand. And labor, I'd say 50% of it, maybe more. What do you think? 50% of it is a mind game. It's
Oh, yeah, for sure. A lot of
yeah.
it's in my game. Mhm.
So the more you can do to practice letting your mind have its opinions and then just going for it anyway, or releasing and surrendering and just being there is part of the process. Those practices, again, will lead to a more easeful labor, in my opinion.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed in my experience was that, especially the first time, because it's such, like you said, it's like kind of taboo. And was this feeling of just having something, and I think this can be very relatable to birth, where you have to sit where the baby's just putting a ton of pressure in something and it feels really full and feels like you want it, I don't know, out. I'm gonna repeat myself here, but it's full and it's hard, and you're learning to just be with it and just accept it. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And I don't think that I've ever experienced that with vaginal sex in that way. Especially too, because as a kid, I had a lot of constipation issues. So this idea of something hard and formed in this area and to just sit there, and that really reminded me of when the baby's head is starting to crown and you have to sit there and wait for the next surge to come on. Learning for a lot of pregnant people to wait instead of trying to push through that, because that's
Mhm.
sometimes when tears can happen because we're like forcing against nature, right? As opposed to when it's coming naturally, I think is really good practice too. Just learning to sit there with that pressure. That's what it is, that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's an element too of, if you do have a partner and you are doing this with your partner, there's a huge communication part that
Hmm.
comes into play. And this is
Yeah.
a great way to practice your communication, checking in with each other, picking up on body cues. It can really bring you together emotionally on a whole new level. Obviously, physically, if it's new to you, it'll bring you together at a whole new level, but emotionally too, there'll be a lot of benefits there. And those are things that can be taken into labor if your partner's going to be there. You could even bring it in as a little bit of humor and giggle, and just remember when you kind of whisper
Surrender.
to your partner while they're in labor, and maybe they'll want to smack you if you still like giggle. Who knows? Or that's just dependent on the situation. But you'll be able to read your partner a little better and know, will this little bit of humor or this little bit of reminder or this energy bring anything right now? But yeah, I do want to bring that element into it, because I think that's another really big thing of, you're working together in this
Mhm.
way that in some ways it's similar. Again, like, you're the person who's going to be surrendering, opening, and needing to allow. And your partner, well, they're more actively involved in what's happening in the sexual act.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially, they are going to be the ones that probably are needing to communicate with you, check in with you, see where you're at as
Mhm.
things process.
And I think that definitely came out. Like I was more communicative about what I wanted or needed. And it felt more clear during that time, especially that first time. I was like, nope, do this, do this.
Yeah.
There's some power too, especially if you've never had anal before and then you're doing it with your partner, because it's a new experience for both of you. And having that new experience to, like you said, go through all these processes, and the mental, the emotional, and even the physical process can be really profound, especially because you're going to be walking into that through childbirth maybe for the first time too.
Yeah. They tell you to do perineal stretches
Mm-hmm.
And that's uncomfortable. I feel like that's more uncomfortable than doing anal properly.
And I think that's the point of it, is to teach you again to, at least I guess there's some pleasure with it, again, with the perineal
Pleasure. There's definitely pleasure if you're doing it right.
I mean, again, I think when you have two first timers in those experiences, it's like a learning curve. And yeah, I guess it's fair.
Yes. And to that point, I highly encourage people to practice this more than once leading up to labor. So it's not a one and done thing. And take your time. If you're doing it for the first time and you start to hit a really big mental block, or you're getting to a place where it's really painful or you can't get over it, take a breath. Be like, you know what? Let's come back to this next week or something. And that's okay. Baby steps.
Lots of lube. Start with your finger if you need.
Yeah.
Right? Smaller steps if you need it.
We'll link some resources to.
There you go. That's better.
Some really great things. It's interesting. The loop thing is like a debate, but yes, I mean, on the general side, I would say yes for that.
Yeah, I think it can really be helpful, because I do feel like after thinking about it energetically, there is some shift that happens. And I think part of it is really that cultural, societal aspect of it. Like, you've kind of passed that boundary. You've done something that's uncomfortable and worked through some mental blockages that have come up. And it's funny you said it, because afterwards it's like, this was actually really healing in a lot of ways. And I think it's because of that. Like, mental blocks came up in a way that I would have probably never experienced had I not tried anal.
There is something magical about it. Somebody told me this. Yeah, if you're ever stuck in life,
The winning
anal sex. And once I really got into the practice and I understood the energetics behind it, it worked. It made sense. And it always works. If I feel stuck in any way and I have a really good anal session, it does. And I think there's something to the acupressure part of it and opening new neural pathways. Like, it opens probably working different energetic pathways in your body and stimulating those that don't get stimulated probably that often. Even when we are having a bowel movement, it's not the same as certain points of if you're penetration.
Yeah.
And there's that aspect. So we have energy channels in our body, and those are getting activated in new ways that they don't normally get. And then I also truly believe that we are using different neural pathways. Again, with that mental thing, if we were to look at this scientifically, I'm sure there would be some, I don't know if there's any studies out there on this, probably not. But I'm sure if somebody were to look at the brain activity when you're doing something like this, you're probably using different parts of your brain or different neural pathways that we don't normally use, just to, again, overcome these thoughts or these patterns that we're surrounded by every day in our lives from childhood up into adulthood.
Yeah. And I think that on top of that, you have somebody there that's supporting you and really trying to listen to you and be there for you. And that too brings it into this other layer of aspects and healing as those things come up too, right?
I want to also just talk about this because not everybody is partnered, and also maybe not everyone feels comfortable taking the first baby step with a partner. You get all the benefits, and it's totally fine to do self-play as either your first step of like, hey, I just want to see how I feel about this before I start to invite my partner in, or I don't have a partner, I'm going to just do some self-play, and that is just as valid, and it's not any less beneficial. So don't think you have to have a person. I think it is a great practice to have another person, but if that's either not in the cards for you or you really don't feel safe with that to start, then just start by yourself. That's totally okay. Baby steps if you're new. Baby steps if you're new. Or just jump in the deep end. That's how I like to do it.
That's what I did too. Just jump in.
I like you. I'm like, hey, Jen,
enjoy them.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Let's go have some fun. Let's go do something. Yeah. All the reasons why anal sex is beneficial for labor, and maybe this is a really just great opportunity. It's beneficial for life. I will promise you that, especially if you approach it intentionally and you really kind of have it as a sacred practice. It can be really, really sweet and something that's very special in your life. And I encourage, this is such a great thing that labor could be the gateway for you to discover such a beautiful practice and carry this forward, because I can promise you, even after labor, having this in your back pocket
Mhm.
That's something to come to when you're going through the journey of motherhood or parenting. It's pretty nice. Sometimes you just really need a different kind of release. Like you feel stuck or you feel like everything's
Mhm.
against you. And when you have this practice, it can really help shift the energetics around whatever's happening in your life. And you might need that as you travel into parenting, no matter what child this is for you.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that this one was focused more about the why we think this practice is beneficial to specifically labor and birth and how it might be beneficial to labor and birth. And we could, of course, like get into the hows, but I don't think we need to.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of other people out there and plenty of other resources for that.
Definitely. Definitely.
And I'm curious if you have practiced anal before you gave labor. I don't if you feel safe, you can do it totally anonymous. You don't have to put your name or anything. You can leave us a voicemail. You don't have to put your name. I know we'll hear your voice, but unless we know you, we probably don't know who you are. And let us know. I love to get more of a poll because I'm just so curious who out there has practiced it before labor, and do you find that maybe it shifted or no, you don't think it had any impact? I guess it's so nuanced too, because some people, I think, jump into practicing and they don't really have the right information or knowledge of how to step into it properly. And then they have traumatic experiences. And then that can be like, yeah, I tried it and hell no, it didn't help me in labor.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway for me here, even if you choose not to go down the anal route prior to childbirth or try it ever in your life, is really just try to be there with it, with whatever you're experiencing, and shift your perspective. Because I think that's really what my experience was. A great
Yeah.
shift in perspective, and then learning to just be with uncomfortability and accept it as a healing instead of a bad thing or whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. I just encourage people to open their mind and baby step into a place that might feel uncomfortable for them, because there is a lot of power in it. And when you really think about sex in general, which we want to talk about sex also just more generally, but we niched it in this first, that sex was considered really taboo. And now I think it's very apparent, I don't know, maybe depending on where you are in the world listening to this, that there's benefits, right? There's a lot of benefits, health benefits, healing benefits. All of these things have been greatly pressed in our world. And as a birthing person, I feel like it's kind of in our power to bring this into the light of this is healing, this is beneficial, this does have tie-in to a greater life force energy. And wouldn't it be cool to just step into that? So try it.
Yes.
Try it.
Try it. Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth a try for sure.
And even if you have already given labor and you're listening to this as a parent, the benefits are just as great. So
They are. I
give
can
it a
speak to
go.
that one.
All right.
Don't
Well,
forget to subscribe to our newsletter.
yeah,
We'd
if
love
you
to have you
haven't
there.
checked out our site, it's really easy to remember. Justthis.site. So justthis.site. And you can join our newsletter there. It's right there in the front. And please do. We'll send you some goodies and also keep you updated on, we have some things in the works around potential ideas for events and guests and whatnot coming up. So the best way to stay in touch is to join our email list. And then, of course, share this podcast with a friend.
Yeah, and we don't bombard your email, we promise.
Yeah, we're too busy
Makes
for
it
that
worth
shit.
it. Yes.
I promise you. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey there, amazing listeners. We just want to say a huge thank you for tuning into our convo on the Just This podcast today. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners, and your continued support means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found value in it, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it too. Your reviews and shares not only motivate us, but they also help others discover our show.
We're also all about keeping the conversation going and hanging out with our incredible community. Head over to justthis.site, that's justhis.site, where you'll find additional resources, ways to connect with us, and join the conversation, plus some more goodies.
Thank you again for being a part of the Just This community. We'll be back soon. Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and embrace the wonder as you navigate this extraordinary adventure.